Welcome to Albion Online ZvZ Guide. Today we'll dive deep in the world of large-scale PvP battles, or ZvZ. Zerg vs Zerg, where massive groups of players clash to control over territory, resources and glory. Whether it's 20 vs 20, 50 vs 50 or even larger, ZvZs are a core part of the game. And understanding the strategies, gear, positioning and roles is key to success. This ZvZ guide will be divided into 5 episodes: ZvZ Basics, ZvZ Mechanics, ZvZ Countdown, ZvZ Bombsquad and ZvZ Battlemounts. ZvZs are critical in Albion Online. They shape the landscape of the game and make the economy flow. With broken items in large numbers opens an opportunity for crafters to thrive. Winning these battles allows you to claim territory, gain valuable point 4 resources and earn silver and glory. And they are related with a specific timer. A castle timer, a terry timer, a vortex timer and so on. This tutorial will help you understand everything you need to excel in ZvZs. Caller and Zerg roles. In every ZvZ, there's a caller and a Zerg. Caller is responsible for commanding the group, dictating where to engage and what to focus on, and gives strategies and directions to the Zerg: north, east, west, south, and the combination of these 4 basic directions are essential to the Zerg to function. It's most common to players to go the opposite way of the calls or abandoning the Zerg in panic with half HP, leaving the healing train behind. You can also have a second caller. In most cases you will have. In case the main caller died, the second caller takes his place so the Zerg doesn't get lost while the caller comes back to the fight, or to continue the fight without the main caller. The second caller can do fake engages, can be a scout and help the caller see things he cannot see in the front line. It can also pick up a second party and do other objectives while you wait for a fight, like outposts or castles. So you need a person that you can trust to fill this role. The Zerg itself has specific roles that help you make or break the battle and work as a whole, so let's break that down. We will have tanks, support, DPS, healers and Battlemounts. Some Battlemounts are only available in the Black Zone. So we'll start with tanks. Most of the times the caller will be a tank in the middle of the front line, and helped by other tanks or scouts to see further away in the fight or in the flanks. There are always exceptions where the callers are not tanks, like in Comp, for example, that the caller uses a permafrost, or in the bomb squad, that the caller will use a witchwork. Every caller will have a countdown, and the way they want you to play depending on the enemy's Zerg composition and numbers. They will tell you your role when they are doing the team composition, or even change it in the middle of a fight. You can start as a death tank, be a scout, and end up setting engages. All caller weapons have between 20 and 30 seconds cooldown. Earthrune Golem has 25 seconds cooldown. Also have to mention the W that can pull 5 people has 15 seconds cooldown. You have Odge or End of Justice that has 30 seconds cooldown. It can be used as a caller weapon also. You have the Camlin, used to be a caller weapon also. It has 25 seconds cooldown. You have One-Handed Mace that you can use as a caller with Air Compressor. Air Compressor has 30 seconds cooldown. And Witchwork, which is a bomb squad caller, is kind of different, it's 20 seconds cooldown. And also important, Permafrost, used in almost all compositions, has 30 seconds cooldown. So with some weapons like Earthrune, you have to wait for the Permafrost cooldown for the next engage. Also Demon Armor has 40 seconds cooldown, so you'll need Assassin Wood to reset that cooldown so you have it on time for the enemy engage. Most callers use a 5-second countdown before engage and directions of the engage. Some callers use terrain references to help players have a visual image where to engage.
Look to the wall, east, look to the wall, east, south, look to the wall. 5, 4, 5, breach 4, breach 3, breach 2.
Or they can quick engage with a 3-second countdown, or even play off cooldowns in specific situations, like catching the remaining players after winning a fight. D-tanks, death tanks or defensive tanks. For the tanks, your job will be stopping enemy DPS from engaging on your teammates, or a portion of the DPS players, so their engage is less effective. Bigger guilds will have tanks in TeamSpeak or Guilded, so they don't overlap in their roles, or so they don't stop the same bomb squad with 2 players or 3, and communicate properly what is happening in the fight to the color. All tank weapons give you a bonus HP, maces, quarterstaffs and hammers, while others don't. You can check the stats in the weapon tooltip after the ability icons. That makes you the first line of defense, the front line, since you can tank a lot of damage. And if your position is good, you probably won't take any damage. Some weapons are not tank weapons, but they are used because of the utility they bring to the Zerg. It's much crucial than the extra HP. For example, is Cycle, One-Hand Arcane and Great Arcane, both without HP bonuses in the weapon. There are also other types of tanks. You have Hardstoppers, they have less self-defensives and a lot of abilities to stop all Zergs. Is Cycle also being a part of this type of tank. You have set engage tanks, like Heavy Mace, Hammers, Great Arcane. This tank sets the engage to the color, locking players with CC before the color pulls the enemies. Clump Tanks or offensive tanks. This type of tank helps the color to get more people in the clump. Normally the best choice is End of Justice, but I have to do a quick mention to Daybreak Kidnap. Most used in Terry fights, because you can take the most of the squiver boots because of the walls, and if you play it properly, it can be also useful in open world fights. This build relies highly on the boots for the kidnap. It can also be played with Harpoon for a double kidnap. Tanks with the same weapon and build can do different game styles, depending on what your Zerg needs. Always adapt yourself to the situation and to what the color is asking you to do. Support role. Support players normally have some utility to the Zerg, like cleanses, purges, pierces, HP reduction, reflex, and resistances. Your positioning depends on your armor type, and you will be helping control the flow of the battle. The most common weapon for support is Arcane, but you'll also have Life Curse, Damnation, Rootbound, Oath Keepers, depending on the game style of your color and what objectives you want to contest. Support role normally stays more close to the color, with Demon Armors or Judy Armors, or in the flanks with other utility chest pieces like the Squiver or Knight Armor. There are also DPS supports, such as Realmbreaker or Spirit Hunter. Both can use Royal Jacket for resets, and also Carving that can be played with Plate. They are needed for their utility, for the pierce or for the HP reduction, more than for the damage itself, and that's why they are supports and not DPS. Next, we have the healer role that can be Nature or Holy Staff. Healers can be on the backline or in the flanks, depending on the situation and what your color asks you to do. Keeping your team alive is your primary goal, but don't forget, you got to be alive to heal. Always be aware of your positioning and the pace of the game, the attacking-defending game. Engage, disengage. Don't waste your abilities in full HP players, don't waste defensives in the wrong places. You might need them later. Don't panic with enemy tanks nearby. So for the last role we have the DPS, the damage dealer, that can be melee or ranged. For DPS, your E belongs to your color. Your E synchronization dictates who lives and dies. Your Q and W are also important to pressure enemy tanks. Don't just wait for your E's to be called, be proactive with more macro plays and make those tanks go back for heals. This class suffers more from meta than the others. Considering this, there is something to think when choosing weapons. Every weapon in the game can be reflectable or non-reflectable. For example, Baden and Dawn Song are now non-reflectable. The weapons can be stackable or non-stackable. For example, Permafrost is not stackable, so you only need one Permafrost in your party. Weapons can have long channels and low cast channels. If you want a long channel, you will need Morgana or a Scholar Roll, but that means you will have less defensives. So the low cast time is the instant cast, like Rift Glaive for example. A good example for this is 3 different pierces. Damnation will be a channel, Spirit Hunter will be an instant cast, and Carving will also be instant cast, but you need to stack, so it becomes a long channel if you don't stack it properly. You also have low cooldown versus high cooldown. For example, Hellfire's longbow are low cooldown. For low cooldown, I will say the weapons that are the same cooldown as the color, so 30 seconds below. For the high cooldown, I will say the weapons that are 30 seconds above. 30 seconds above the weapon the color uses. So these types of weapons will need Assassin Hood or Royal Jacket. This changes the way the build is made for that weapon and if it's viable or not for your composition. Let's use Permafrost as an example. If you see Permafrost will be non-reflectable, which is fantastic, so you don't need to worry about demon armors. It will be non-stackable, okay, this is one problem, you can only use one. It will be a low cast time, okay, so Permafrost already have 2 good things, and it's also a low cooldown. You cannot also interrupt Permafrost. It only has one disadvantage, it's not stackable, you just use one Permafrost, but looking at this table you will see it is OP, and on top of that, it also stuns the enemy and locks the enemy into place, so it's easier for the other DPSs to hit the target. This is how you see if the weapons are good or not for ZvZ, but of course then you got to read the tooltip of the weapon and see what utility it brings to your Zerg or to your type of game style. So now that we know all ZvZ roles, we are going to see in this chart the IP importance of each role. So you have a general idea what to spec and what not to spec. This is very simple. Tanks and supports, it's more important to have the chest pieces, in this case plate, in a higher level. If you can have all at 100, it will be very good, because you will need different types of plate armors. Normally you will need demon armor, Duskweaver armor, knight armor and guardian armor. So you'll have 4 options. If you are a more control support or more control tank, you'll use demon armor near the collar. If you are a stopper, like we talked in the roles, if you are a stopper, you will need another kind of plate armor, like a knight armor, a Duskweaver armor. So you need to have options. Different players take different plate armors. And it's less important in the tanks and the supports, the weapon. It's first the chest, and then the weapon, and then the rest. DPS is the most important weapon to have spec. I always think that you need to have a lot of spec in DPS. Not only 100, but if you can do 700 or a little bit more, it's always helpful. And you can have the tanks in tier 7 with OC, no problem. But you maybe need T8 players for DPS, elite players. Healers, it depends. In nature it doesn't make much difference, the healing output, but in DPS it does. In Battlemounts, you need to have the chest spec up, so you get more armor to the Battlemount, and offhand to get more cooldowns for the Battlemount. So for the purpose of this video, we will focus on 20 plus players, just to give you the basics how everything works. Types of comp can vary depending on the Zerg size or your objectives. For this example, we are going to talk about player roles in a 20-man party Zerg, and I'm going to tell you the players per role. This can change, but normally it's 1 color, 5 tanks that can be offensive or defensive, 6 DPS, and in this 6 DPS you have always utility like pierce or HP reduction. For supports, normally go with demon armor and also have utility, pierce, shields, the shield of enigmatic or rootbound, reflect with the demon that I just said, HP reduction, for example incubus, and cleanses with the W arcane. Also very important is the guard rune of the mace. that is not on support, it's normally on tank, normally on bedrocks. It's very OP. It gives resistance and also immunity to force movement effects. So in this comp you also have 4 healers, so in total 20 men. This is an example of what the Zerg comp looks like, but it changes depending on your color. Some prefer more support, others prefer more tanks. It depends on what you're doing. Also depends on the number of allies fighting with you, on your own Battlemounts, on the ally Battlemount, so you can remove some items if you play with Battlemounts like Limer's Cape or some reset like Assassin Wood and Royal Jacket. We will talk about that in a different video. With this 20-man party or plus, we can do three types of comps. The most common comp is Clap Comp. So it relies on ranged DPS, normally clothes or leather jackets with damage buffs like Hunter jackets, for example. It has a strong front line to protect your healers and DPS. It's basic front-to-back comp, looking for opportunities to kill enemies, tanks, and DPS is out of position, for example. Color must burn enemy defensives to get opportunities, like Clericals, Demon Armors, Locusts, and clump more people as possible, so it triggers AoE escalation. And the other comp is basically the same comp, is a Brawl Comp. Some people call it Monkey Comp. This one consists in melee weapons and leather jackets, and it's based on waiting for the enemy to engage and flood their black line to create chaos and take advantage of the mechanic resilience penetration. The Brawl Comp is never a full Brawl Comp. You will still have clap engage most of the times, like Permafrost, Realm Breaker. But in theory you could have a full Brawl party, but I never seen it before, honestly. Just in small scale or 5v5, there you will see full Brawl comps. The tanks may change a bit using this comp, like you can use Staff of Balance to slow your enemies and get healing reduction. Because these types of comps, the melee goes straight to the enemy's healers and try to do as much abilities as they can, making pressure to the enemy with dots and healing reduction. The best way to explain this is having clap on the left and brawl on the right, and the comp will vary if the line is more for the left or more for the right. The third comp I want to talk to you about is Bomb Squads, which is a clap comp with less or none defensives. You can have many types of bomb squads. You have solo bomb squad, duo bomb squad, trio bomb squad, 4+ bomb squad. We will talk about bomb squads in a special episode. These are players who focus on dealing massive areas of damage to disrupt enemy formations. They are crucial for breaking enemy blobs and creating chaos in the fight. Normally, elite players fill this role with high spec and Gucci sets. You need 7.3 or above depending on the weapon to be effective as a bomb squad. It's meta now, Zergs running more than one bomb squad. It makes a lot of pressure to the other Zergs and creates panic in the backline and panic to the tanks. Even a solo player can create chaos, like Invis Bomb. And most important, in my opinion, it completely breaks the engage and disengage style of fights, since you have a lot of different countdowns to look for. You got to look for the main Zerg engage and the other bomb squads engaged. Instead of being engaged 30 in 30 seconds, you'll probably be engaged in 50 seconds or less. This was already becoming popular with the introduction of the Horizons update. The fortifications on terrace, the walls made it more safe and less risky to buy some expensive sets and do these types of bomb squads. With these three types of comps, any Zerg composition will have some kind of a mix of these three, where you have the clap capability, range DPS, and also can push with melee DPS the enemy Zerg, and have a bomb squad to surprise the enemy. The type of comp can be influenced by the place you fight. For example, some guilds will not risk bomb squads in open world, others maybe take a solo bomb squad, for example. In a Terry Siege, if you are defending, the Terry has 3 distinctive faces: first floor, second floor, and the sentry mage. The wall's protection to retreat and the different faces makes guilds more comfortable using Battlemounts and bomb squads. They can retreat to the back at any time and go back to the hideout. In these Terry fights also, consider that Terry has walls, so most Brawl players or short-range tanks will only be more helpful in the last phase, when the walls are all broken, in the sentry mage phase. The same with castles. Castles can have 2 or 3 floors depending on the castle, but the walls are easier to break. Open world objectives like outposts, power cores, vortex, treasures, old white, Zerg will try to fight in a specific choke or specific elevation depending on the Zerg style. And if you look at the map, you have different shades of green, for example, and you can see the elevations are different. Right now guilds use a Discord add-on so they can have a good understanding with mass or not and what numbers you will be fighting in the objectives that are up. For instance, if you see the number 1 guild with 50 people and a vortex in 10 minutes, most probably that will be contested by them. So you can look for other guilds massed with the same numbers you have, and they will probably be willing to fight with you. Since you already have some notions of comps, we will be looking at some color styles. It's basically strategies that colors do to break enemy formations or defend better some situations. These concepts are tactics or strategies that can help you play or counterplay better against the enemy Zerg. Color styles. You have the Tsunami. It's a flood style. You need to have an experienced caller and a big Zerg to do this type of calling, because the idea is to go inside the enemy Zerg and create chaos. You need to be fast, you need to have speed to go to the enemy backline, like a Beetle, Occult, and basically the enemy backline gets lost and just panics. Melee DPS is very good in this style. So now we're going to bait and switch. Bait and switch is a very common style to bait the enemy into engage so you can counter engage, okay? And you have a lot of ways to bait the engage. You can fake engage with DPS, for example. You choose 1 or 2 DPSs and they engage with you. You just fake the engage and hope they buy it and they engage back, and then you do the real engage. Another way to do a fake engage is to take the second caller takes the same weapon or a weapon that has the capability of doing a clump. This way the fake engage baits some defensives from the enemy team and they will be more exposed to the real engage. For example, the caller can do this with the golem also. He can use the E to fake engage and then use the W to pull 5 enemies and engage on them. This is always a mind game between Zergs, and also don't forget you can do shallow engages, and that can be very effective. Because even if you don't kill, you can bait some defensives from the tanks, for example. But the basic idea is bait engage, so the other team engages and you counter. I also seen this in bomb squads. Like instead of taking 1 each work, you take 2 each works and place them at the same time, so you don't know where the engage will be. This is kind of a bait engage static. Don't forget, this can be mirrored by the enemy team also, so be aware of that. One of the most known styles, Kite. Kite needs Hardstoppers, so they stop the enemy Zerg, Grove Keepers, A-Cycles, and range DPS. It's supposed to be a counter to Tsunami because it avoids being flooded if you play it correctly. because the idea is to kite, and they will never be in your backline because you are constantly kiting, and you will be deleting the tanks one by one. This is really a front-to-back comp. You hitting the tanks and go back. Hit the tanks and go back. You do this until the enemy Zerg doesn't have a front line, and then the back line will be exposed and you can finish them off. Another one I want to mention, another style, is the sword engage. You basically engage at a distance, you engage off screen like bomb squads. And you go all together in the small block, choose the direction, and you try to engage a part of the enemy Zerg and try to one-shot that part. This tactic is very difficult because it's very easy to counter, because you get very exposed to the enemy, but you have the advantage of being the first to engage. It's much easier to do this tactic with walls, like in territories, but some guilds use this tactic as a Zerg and not only on bomb squads. For the last one, I want to talk about Crescent and Pressure. This one is a little bit of everything, but you need bruisers, and you need weapons with good Q and Ws to make pressure. The Crescent is like the banana. Everyone talks about the banana form. This is like a banana form where you try to pressure the flanks of the enemy Zerg, and you make them back up and clump. So with this pressure, they start to be less spread, and you try to force the enemies to chokes, even without using these. Okay, you pressure with your melee, and you also make soft pressure with positioning. You win the terrain slowly, and they will burn individual defenses. The counter to this Crescent and Pressure, the banana, is the sword engage we talked about a little bit earlier. This one is high level for individual players. They have to play very good. I just want to mention one thing colors do a lot. It's called Headbutt. You wait for the engage of the enemy, but you use a gigapot and go try to engage almost at the same time. Basically, you try to absorb the engage while engaging. It's a crazy tactic, but it's used sometimes. It's not just the color styles I want to address, color calls, because they are pretty much always the same. So the color will call for defensives. Defensives normally are demon armors, guard runes, cleanses sometimes. So basically they will call for that, okay? But normally the players get used to the color saying defensives, and sometimes the enemy engages and they don't use defensives. So be aware of that you don't need to press your demon if the color doesn't ask. Like if you see an engage, use your demon with other demons, so because if you use it alone, you will die. The countdown, we already talked about the countdown. Everyone will have a different countdown. Some are faster, some are slower. It depends on the color. Another thing the colors ask a lot is to hold chokes, because the choke is your first defense to the enemy Zerg. So they ask tanks that have defenses to hold the chokes so they don't pass the choke. Very important, stabilize. Stabilize means that your Zerg was engaged and some players are low, so you need to put a Judis, use heals and stabilize the Zerg so they can go back to the fight. Kiting is one of the most important. Kiting is use less Qs and Ws, and you just use your E and go straight back, always back. Always going back after using your E's, and the tanks will hold the enemy, and you'll have, for example, an occult to help you go away. Also the opposite of kite, push. So color will ask the people to push when it's intended to push, when they see an opportunity, and you'll just go in and try to do as much damage as you can. An important thing here, when they say push, is not the healers to push, and when they say kite, is not the tanks to kite, right? When you kite, the tanks are supposed to hold the enemy, and then they go back. When you're supposed to push, the melee is supposed to push, and not the other DPS or not dealers, okay? Also, they are looking will be important in the countdown, because They are looking basically means when everyone is in a group, they are going in circles, waiting for the caller to say something. And when the callers say, we are looking, you will see the players, all the players go in the same direction. And that gives the other caller that they are looking, because they are all facing the same way. And the same way around. We are looking, you will have the caller is telling you to prepare because they are going to clap in some place. So the players normally go in the caller's direction and then use the other abilities. Now that you have an understanding of the different roles, strategies, mechanics involving ZvZ, you're ready to step into the battlefield. And remember, ZvZs are about coordination, teamwork and understanding your role. By mastering your position, gear and communication, you'll become a part of your Zerg and increase your chances to victory. Good luck and may your battles bring you glory in Albion. If you want to be a caller, I will highly advise you to check Alpha Omega University. You can learn a lot about ZvZ. I would recommend you to see episode 22, Using the Terrain. Another thing, my name is Albion Bard. I did a lot of songs for Albion Online. If you never heard those, go check them out. Thank you guys for watching and see you in the next one.